What's up guys, it's Bo here again, and welcome to another Bo Jinjin vlog. In this entry I want to talk to you guys about something that I've discovered recently that kind of partly came from my own interactions with other people and just changes I've made in my own life, kind of circumstances, if you could say. And also, there's an interview I watched recently by Teal Swan, a spiritual catalyst, which talks about narcissism and codependency, right? And those are two very common psychological health issues, basically, right? Whereby the narcissist is someone who does not... Well, the narcissist is typically, you know, your overly aggressive person who is overly assertive, is overbearing on the people around them without really consciously knowing, you know, the damage that they're doing to other people. And then the codependent is the person who is the perfect complement to the narcissist. In that they are, you know, overly supplicating. They are overly passive, in that they let themselves be lost in the, you know, the demands of the narcissist, right? So there is a common trend among these two personality types, right? These two kind of personality disorders, which is basically an inability to look after oneself, right? And basically my own realization I had recently was that, well, let me give you a bit of background first, right? You know, in many of my previous videos, I talk about myself being a very generally, you know, someone who's leaning more towards being a nice person, right? You know, I have a history of being basically, yeah, in essence, like a very codependent, right? I've had a past where, you know, I was overly supplicating to people, where I would basically, you know, engage in people pleasing so that, you know, other people wouldn't, you know, get upset with me, you know, kind of thing. I was always scared of other people's judgment, you know. And so, you know, I was very much in that state of codependency, right? And from a bigger perspective, right, someone who was unable, who never learned, really, because that's really, you know, the issue of it here, is someone who never learned how to properly take care of themselves, right? And so, you know, I've been living my life, and obviously, as a codependent person, right, or someone with a history of codependency, you know, I have very obvious issues, right? You know, I struggle still, you know, with asserting my own opinion, although, you know, it's gotten a lot better in recent years. I struggle with just generally like conflict and letting my needs be known directly, you know. I'm very sheepish about letting my desires be known, or you know, having my needs met in that kind of a way, because I'm so used to you know, supplicating, you know, so used to kind of abandoning my own needs in favor of other people, you know. Like, this is like a typical empath, like, from, you know, a spiritual perspective. But basically I had this realization, right? Well, it was more of an experience, basically, rather than... The realization came after that. But basically what I've been doing recently is I've been changing up my kind of daily approach, like, to doing things, right? Where I've started to put myself first, right? And this has had a startling effect on, well, a very curious effect on just generally the way that I feel about myself, and also the people around me and society and stuff like that, right? Yeah, so basically I mentioned in an earlier entry that I've started writing, right? Because I've discovered writing as a vehicle for me to basically put myself out into the world and start to build something of my, something of a career, right? And so I've had to exercise a bit of willpower, and I've highlighted to myself that I will write 1,000 words a day, right, towards this, building this writing thing that I'm doing. And basically, this is my kind of ultimatum. So like, I have to do this every day. And I've also discovered that doing it early on in the day, so doing it the first thing, putting that as, the absolute priority for like each day. Well, this and kind of just, yeah, this is the main thing. But overall, this has had, like I said, a startling effect, right? It has enabled me to, for example, there are people in my life right now, and I'm not going to name their names, but there are people in my life who basically, usually I would not want to hang out with, or like not really want to, be too, get into too much contact with, right? And that's basically a trait of, a codependent person, or someone coming from that background. Or if you don't like the word codependent, like empath, overly nice person, it already points to the same thing. But like, someone like me, resentment and kind of like sheepishness. I did a video about the strength of evasiveness, actually. But the flip side of that, the kind of shadow side of that, is that you don't like, you're quite indirect. So like, sometimes you just don't want to hang out with someone, but like, you're just so nice that like they get the impression that like you actually like them, or like that you want to spend more time with them, or that like you could be a very good friend to them. And that's not necessarily the impression that you want to give. But like, and traditionally I've always had like, this kind of very like kind of like cringing like feeling whenever like, people want to hang out with me that like I don't really want to see too often, But ever since I started to do this, and like, also a bit of background is like, I've always had an issue with like basically working, like, I think, and this is again another kind of codependent, not overly nice kind of a person's like problem. Like, it's like, you're not very motivated, I guess you could say. And motivation to do things has always been an issue for me. But like, I've had to push through this because of, this goal I've set for myself. And, so the overall effect of doing this is that like, the person I just mentioned, well, the people that I mentioned, like, I actually don't mind hang out with them, right? Like, once I've done my thing, once I've done what I needed to do, I don't mind. Usually, like, I get that cringing feeling, right? When someone calls me up, like I mentioned this in the evasiveness entry. Someone calls me up or someone hits me up and like they want to talk or something, I'm like, oh my god, like I'm like, not right now, like I don't have any time for you right now. But magically, like in this one example, I was like, wow, I actually don't mind, and like it felt really good to be together with him. And like, I also have, as a codependent nice person, empath, you also have these feelings of like, you're nice to people, but you also, to an extent, hate people, right? And like, that's quite a strong word, I know, but like, It's like you're a bit disdainful of people at times. You know, your kind of overall view, maybe this is just me and my personality type, maybe it has nothing really to do specifically with like codependency or anything like that, but you you're just like, your general vibe about people is like, you know, they're there to waste your time, and like you don't really want anything to do with them. But like once I started to put myself first, right, and putting myself first, right, in summary, is basically doing what you need to do first, right? You know, putting yourself first, putting your needs, top of the priority list. Once I did that, I actually started to want to connect with people, right? And like, this is so weird, right? It doesn't sound weird as I'm saying it now, but like, if you're someone who, has always been like this, you're just kind of a bit indirect, evasive, overly nice, passive, secretly a bit disdainful of other people, and like, because you feel as though people are just there to kind of take up your time and stuff like that. When you actually start putting yourself first, right, you actually start to want to connect with people, It stops becoming this thing where like, you're like, oh man, people are just there to take advantage of me or like to use my time up. But rather it's like, I've done what I needed to do today for myself. I healed myself, I put myself first, I put my needs first, I met my needs first, and now I have time for other people, right? And this realization for me was like a very, very, very crucial realization for me. Because it's like, wow, a lot of us, right, we were brought up not knowing how to look after ourselves, right? And like, I've talked a lot about the codependents, but like the narcissists, right, they have the same problem. They, on the surface, appear to be people who are very self-sufficient, right? They appear on the surface to be people who seem to know what they want, seem to be able to get it without any problem, right? But secretly, these people have the same problem. They have the same fear. They have the same inability to look after themselves. The narcissist is not able to look after themselves. They look after other people, right? They cater to the needs of people in a way that communicates basically. It's very manipulative basically. It communicates that I'm looking after you. I'm working so hard for you. I'm doing all of this for you, right? It's all for you. You're so fucking selfish, right? That's the narcissist's approach and mindset. But they do all this for other people. But their secret desire is for other people to then reciprocate, right? To then look after them, either from, an equally physical, level or an emotional level, right? Narcissists are the same as codependents. They don't know how to look after themselves. So basically you have these two, basically most people who, were not taught to look after themselves. And this is not anyone's fault. This isn't something you can point the finger at someone for, A lot of this comes from our parenting, right? And, a lot of our parents, the truth is, a lot of our parents were not themselves taught by their parents how to look after themselves, right? They were not taught to put themselves first. They were taught that they either had to work for other people and then wish that their needs would then be met by the other people that they help, or they were taught basically to just let other people take care of them, basically, right? And this is where you get the narcissist codependent dynamic, right? But to really look after oneself, to really put oneself first, right? That involves really sitting down and thinking about what your needs are, what your what your kind of interests are, not what anyone else's is, what you truly want, right? And that takes a bit of work, right? In my case, it took quite a lot of willpower, like to, you know, put myself into, you know, to practically put myself in a position like where, like, you know, with this writing thing I'm doing, to, you know, start to do this, right? And like just the other things I've done in my life, right? Like identifying that I'm someone who wants to, you know, to bring awareness to the world, to myself first and foremost, but then to the world, to challenge like the stagnant kind of dogma within the world. You know, someone who wants freedom. You know, all of the things that I mentioned in my previous entries about what I want, and you know, my views of the world, right? You know, from doing that, like I've slowly been building this paradigm, right? Because it is like, it is a, you know, a method, right? It is a way of life, right? You're either living for yourself or you're living for others, right? And to really live for yourself, you really have to quest internally, like tapping into your sensitivity, you know, really developing your perspective and understanding yourself, you know, being self-aware and understanding the world, and then identifying on a physical level, you know, what you want out of life. You know, all of these things. You need to start to do this, and the point at which you start to do this, you start to build this paradigm of putting yourself first and putting down this useless paradigm of, you know, like of basically trying to manipulate the world, other people, to cater for your needs. Because if you really think about it, you know, if those people disappeared, like, you know, hypothetically speaking, like, if the people that are in your life disappeared right now, or if the world completely changed into like a really hostile environment or something, you know, if the world changed, if your environment changed, who is there to look after you, honestly speaking, right? And you know, you know, this is one of the harsh things of life, which is useful as a tool for you to then to awaken to this paradigm of like looking after yourself, right? And you know, once you start to do this again, you'll start to see the world very differently, right? I'm almost at a loss for words. Like it's kind of, you know, I'm not in my usual eloquent self, I guess, but it's like, put yourself first. You know, learn to take care of yourself, learn to love yourself, and then the others will follow, right? Learn to look after yourself, right? Forget everyone else. Forget the, you know, the world out there. Focus on yourself, focus on what you want, and start to do things in line with that, right? Trust me on this. Do this, and then you will start to have compassion for the world. You will start to want to help out in the problems of the world. You will start to want to connect with people that you never thought you wanted to connect with, right? It's like you'll stop having problems where like you're not able to connect with anyone because no one understands your little problems, right? You'll start to, you know, you will start to like be less kind of trapped in this little box that you were put in because you never learned how to put yourself first, right? You never learned how to take care of yourself. You never learned to be your own person, to be independent in your thinking and your actions, right? In your feeling, in your identity, right? And you'll start to expand, right? The world will open up to you, and like it's such a weird feeling because it's like I always you know, I always was on this continual quest, and like this might have been apparent in like some of my older videos, where like I'm like, you know, like I need to find some. If only I could just find that one person to support me, or if only I could find that one niche of people who would support me, or if only I could find these, you know, this one group of people who would share the same interests as I do. And it's like when you start to like really put yourself first, like the options open up to you, and you start to realize that like, you know, maybe that doesn't really have to happen. You know, maybe it was me who needed to shift my paradigm to, you know, to really like start to believe in myself. You know, I did a whole series of videos about trusting yourself, right? Start to rain. Start to trust yourself and to be brave. You know, it's all the same message that I provide to you, you know, tapping into your sensitivity, trusting yourself, being brave, having faith, you know, broadening your perspective, like going internally, you know, questing internally. It's all the same thing. It's, you know, it's this thing of learning how to take care of yourself. And like, once you start to be able to take care of yourself on all levels, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then you start to become such a, like, like the whole world changes. Like, it stops becoming a world where you're always looking for that one thing to save you. And it becomes a world where you can, like, you look around you and like, I can connect with everything here. I can connect with this, you know, this piece of technology. I can connect with this person who, like, you know, this beggar on the street, or this little girl, or like this mother, this single mother. Like, I can connect with everything in this world. And it's like, you know, it's crazy. It's like miraculous. It's amazing. But like, anyway, that was my message for this entry. Like, I'm just trying to get into it. Like, my energy's not as high as it usually is, but I think I've done an okay job. I was quite raw in this video. Like, I think I revealed quite a lot about myself. Like, but anyway, this has been my message, and I hope it's been helpful. This is Bo out. I'll catch you in the next entry. Peace.